Here we are, we're live. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Telling another story this morning, aren't we? Good to have you up bright and early-ish along with us. I'm here, the girls are here, and it's a lovely sunny day outside, yeah? Yeah, okay, so as is our pattern here, we go. Willow's showing some things that she has. Pens, and more pens. Yep. Lila's here too. Glue, because we've been doing some crafty things while we've been in the house, haven't we? And a thing. So I hope you're well. Yeah, that's for you. That's for you. So I hope you're well. You'll be seeing on our Facebook page, that'll come up probably along with this video. We have something a little bit special. So we have been, we've been reading through the Jesus Storybook Bible, and we have another one to give away. So we're going to be doing an Easter giveaway of the Jesus Storybook Bible. And I don't know if you heard that, but Lila just burped louder than I've ever heard anybody burp before. Anyway, we'll be giving away a copy of the Jesus Storybook Bible. What you have to do is colour in the colouring sheet that will come up, that will be on our Facebook page after this video. Get your little one to colour it in, and a while away, an hour or two of isolation time indoors, and then we'll get a winner picked, and the winner will receive a Jesus Storybook Bible. So anyway, that's exciting. That'll come up, as I say, after this video, and it'll run through till the end of next week, till Friday the 17th. And so don't be afraid to print it off, colour it in yourself if you want to have a bit of free time to do that sort of thing. But anyway, Willow, you come and listen, because we are talking about another person from the Bible today, and it's Joshua. Somebody called Joshua. And do you know where we read about Joshua? In the Bible. And do you know what book in the Bible? It's a book called Joshua. Yeah? How do you spell Rose? R-O-S-E. I'm sure any of the parents are familiar with the being asked 1,000 things an hour, one being how to spell your middle name. But anyway, so we're going to look at Joshua from our Bible today, and it's a story called The Warrior Leader. After Moses died, God gave his people a new leader, and his name was Joshua, which means the Lord saves. Joshua was going to lead God's people into the special land God had promised to give them. By this time, God's people had been wandering around in that baking hot desert for 40 years. 40 years! So you can imagine how sick they were of sand and anything yellow, and tents and walking and being hot. Yes, honey? Yeah. Anyway, so as we were saying, they would have been sick of sand and anything hot and tents and walking and all the rest of it. And how happy they were to reach the edge of the desert and see their beautiful new home right there in front of them. And it wasn't hot, it was cool, and it wasn't yellow and sandy, it was green and lovely. But there was only one problem, and that was Jericho. Now, we were learning in Kids Hour about Joshua and about Jericho. And for any of the adults out there, Hugh Laurie, you might remember from House, or A Bit of Frying Laurie, he has on one of his albums a great little rendition of the song Joshua. and the Battle of Jericho. But this was the problem that was facing Joshua and God's people. It was a city. Jericho was a city, but it wasn't just any old city. It was a fortress, and it stopped anyone from getting into the land. And the people looked at Jericho. They looked at the big, giant, scary walls that were all around it. And they looked at the tall, towering ramparts and the heavy iron gates that were bolted shut. And they looked at each other. And you know what they thought, Willow? They thought, what are we going to do? Because nobody knew what they were going to do. But you know who knew? God knew, that's right. And God told Joshua what to do. But Joshua must have looked a little surprised. Show me your surprised face. He must have looked a little bit surprised because it was a very odd plan. It was a very odd plan indeed, as we're going to find out in a moment. But then God made his people a promise. Do you know what God's promise was to his people? He said, look, I will always be with you, and I will never, ever leave you. And if you do what I say, he said, your lives in this new land will be happy and everything will go well. Thank you, Willow. And Lila. Lila just knocked that over. There we go. So Joshua gathered his army together, and they had their swords and their spears and their shields, and they were ready to fight. But the plan wasn't about fighting. It was about trusting, and it was about doing what God had said. I know some of them probably were even laughing, Lila, but the plan wasn't about fighting, it was about trusting. And so the army were to march, and they were to march around the walls of the city. And they marched day after day after day. And you know what the people in Jericho said? They looked at them and they said, they're too scared to fight. And they laughed at them. Give me a big laugh. They're too scared to fight, they said. But they weren't. God's people weren't scared. They were waiting. And they were waiting for God to tell them what to do next. And on the 7th day, God told his people to march around the city. Not once, not twice, not 3, 4, 5, or 6 times, but 7 times. And then God told everyone to make as much noise as they can. Let me hear you make as much noise as you can. Ah! They were making a noise, and they were shouting and banging and screaming. They were making noise. And you know how much noise one person can make? But you add thousands and thousands and thousands more people. That's going to be loud, isn't it? That's going to be really loud. And as it turned out, it was so loud that the huge... Is Lila still making noise? But they made so much noise that the stones of the walls, the big strong walls of Jericho, fell down. And they crumbled down to the ground. These were big strong walls, but now they were like a big cloud of dust. They vanished. And so it was that God's people entered their new home. And they didn't have to fight to get in. They only had to walk. As Joshua said, God has brought you safely here. Now, will we do what he says? Will you do what he says? And do you know what everyone said? I promise. And they promised to God that they would do what he said. So, only God, they said, can make your heart happy. So Joshua said to them now, don't pray to pretend gods. And they said, no, I will never. But do you think they kept their promise? No. They didn't keep their promise. They didn't do what God said. And many years later, they died. Yeah, just as God had warned them, things were going to go badly. Things went badly for God's people. They would lose their home. Enemies would capture them and take them off as slaves. And God's people would scatter into many different lands. But even through all of this, God's plan was still working. And one day he would give his people another leader, and he would give them another home. But this home, no one could ever take from them.
No.
So there we go. That's the story of Joshua and the Battle of Jericho. And sometimes we see there, yes, that's tomorrow's story. But sometimes God's plan isn't like the plans that we would make. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And God's people had their swords and their spears and they were ready to fight. But God told them, look, you don't have to fight. You just have to trust me. And that's what Joshua said to the people. And that's what they did. And that's how they defeated the people in Jericho. Yes.
He's king.
That's right. He's the king. That's tomorrow's story. And that's the story of David. So anyway, thank you very much for...
Can I show this story tomorrow?
Yeah, okay. Okay, you can do that. There we go. That's tomorrow's story. It's called The Teeny Weeny True King. And that's the story of Samuel anointing David. So again, thank you very much. There's Willow's big head again, right in the middle of her screen. Oh yeah, we've got a cut on her nose there too. So where are we? Right there, right at her eye. Don't know what happened. Poked herself in the eye.
Near my eye.
Near your eye, that's right. But anyway, we are going to go and do... Yeah, okay. Goodness knows what this is going to be.
If you touch it, it will bleed.
So remember, look, keep looking on our Facebook page, find our colouring page and colour it in, and tag us at BCM Rathcool, and you'll be on a chance of getting yourself a copy of the Jesus Storybook Bible. But anyway, from Willow, that's goodbye. And she doesn't wave. And we'll see you again next time. Peace!